So first of all, I'll just introduce myself. Thank you for your taking the words out of my mouth. So my name is Fecher. I've worked for the RNLI for the last 12 years on their prevention side. I live just too far away from my local lifeboat station, which is Selsey. It'll take me too long to get there to be on crew, so otherwise I would be on crew. I started to learn to dive in 1984 with BSAC when I was at university in Cardiff, got hooked, and then in 1987, which is when this photograph was taken, I was lucky enough to go out on a Red Sea expedition, which was called the BSAC East Africa expedition. 7 of us and 3 Land Rovers, driving all the way from UK, all the way through to Cyprus, and Cyprus to Israel into Egypt, around the Sinai, down the Egyptian coast to Mar Salam, which was the furthest point you could get, inland, down by Lake Wadi Halfa, to Wadi Halfa, down Lake Nasser, into Sudan, dived in Sudan, and then back up again. And then we came home. After doing that for 6 months, that was me. I'm hooked. I then went on to become a dive instructor out in Cyprus, where I learned my ropes at Sinai in the early 90s, and then came back and started up Wittering Divers, having worked at Andart for a little while down in Southampton, and did that for 16 years, working for Wittering, set up and had Wittering Divers, and we had a dive centre in Wittering and a dive centre in Brighton. I sold it in 2007, a couple of years as a teacher, and then joined the RNLI. So that's me in a nutshell. And I still dive now. I must admit, I don't dive too much in England anymore, to be brutally honest. So that was a picture of me in July in Turkey, which was incredibly clear, incredibly warm, and incredibly boring. Nothing to see. But I still dive now, but not as much as I used to. Okay. So, when Thierry sent in the request for a talk from us, there's almost a particular briefing, which is sort of the reason why I'm here. Normally I could get one of my volunteers to come in and do it, but I thought no, I only live down on the coast, and I'd love to come and talk to you, because there's aspects of bits that was asked for to cover just the RNLI and about our water safety, and maybe some of the stats of the RNLI, and I'm sure you know why we exist, but give you a little bit more detail behind that. And I've woven in some diving stuff, diving stats, and then the rest of the talk will be about diving safety. I'm going to do it from the point of view of I want to have a discussion with you guys. I don't want me transmitting, because I don't want to hear my own voice. So very much a discussion with you, and I'm not going to intend to teach you to suck eggs, but what I hope to do, because I've probably got a range of experiences in the room, is that right? I've got some guys that I'm going to call the old lads that have been diving since the dawn of time, and maybe we've got some ones who are a bit newer to the sport. Is that right? Have I got that right?
Newbies.
Yeah, come on, be honest. Yeah. Okay, so what I would hope to do is by the time I finish, I'm going to try and stick to an hour, is that every single one of you's gone away with something you've learned, yeah? I don't stop learning. I've been diving since '84, and I still learn the whole time, yeah? I'm a RYA Powerboat Instructor, and I've spent tens of thousands of hours on dive ribs, literally thousands of hours on dive ribs, and I still learn. Everyone still learns from it. So hopefully everyone will walk away having learned something. So first of all, why does the RNLI exist? Well, we exist in order to save, well, our strapline is saving lives at sea. Reality, we will attempt to save lives anywhere we can. And this is from people who didn't expect to get the big toes wet in the morning, just going to go out and walk their dog, all the way through to, we've got here divers and yachtsmen and fishermen. But the vast majority of our call-outs and our work is to people who probably didn't expect to enter the water that particular day. We don't just do it in isolation. In order for us to be able to save lives and reduce that fatality count and reduce the amount of times that we get called out to incidents, we have to work in collaboration. But to just give you a little bit of an idea of the scale of the issue that we've got, that is, last year, these stats are, there were 236 accidental water-related fatalities. That's inland and coastal. So 236 people died through a perceived accident. That could be tripping over a cliff, that could be going in after the dog who's gone in the water, that could be cut by the tide, that could be a diver. and unfortunately, as you're probably aware, we've had a spate on the south coast of diving fatalities this summer, which is very odd. Majority of them being male, so 63% inland, and 48%, half people had no intention to enter the water on that day. We also had 208 known suicides, and that unfortunately is a figure that keeps going up every year. And there are 211 unknowns. When we say unknowns, that is someone who has died in water, inland or coastal, who we can't, or not we, but it's a body called WADE, which look at all the fatalities and collate the water fatalities, who said they can't categorically say that was either a suicide or an accident, but normally those will end up becoming suicides and be known to be suicides. So, quite tragic. Bit more detail. Of those 236 fatalities, there were 220 actual incidents, and as we know, about 50% intended to enter the water, and the majority being in England. But even though it's an horrific number, the graph there on the left shows you, in fact, it's actually a decreasing number. So the work that we do, and all our partners do, and all of our colleagues do, so that would be people like the Coast Guard, would be the boroughs, it would be the councils, are having an effect, and we're reducing this number that are dying. So it's a real bummer of a conversation to have to talk about death, but we've got to be realistic about it. So what type of activities? So of those we talked about who died last year, 84% were male, 15% female, and the demographic, well, the majority being adults. And if you look at the ages, that's quite telling. So a lot of people think that it's the young people, you know, it's the teenagers, the 20-year-olds doing silly stuff. Yes, they do silly stuff, they do get into trouble. But the majority of our fatalities are actually in that slightly older block. What do you think the average age of the UK diver is right now?
54.
54. Anyone want to go higher or lower? Come on, higher or lower?
Higher.
About 65.
It's a little bit higher than that now, I think you'll find, yeah. It's getting nearer 60, yeah. And the average age of our, unfortunately, our fatalities in diving is around about there as well, yeah. Now, that when I was to dive in my prime, when I was in the 30s, the average age of the diver in the 90s was around about 34, 36. So it's not quite double, but it's getting there. We're an older diving population, is the message. In an international context, it's recorded of about 235,000 people drown every year worldwide. That's the recorded figure. We actually think it might be actually over 1 million, to be honest. And in 2021, we helped over 387,000 people in Bangladesh learn about water safety. We do a little bit of work internationally. It's a very small amount of work we do, and some of our lifeguards go over to places like Bangladesh and do train-the-trainer programs. They train up locals to become trainers of lifeguards, and we support that. And we actually have funding specifically from a couple of London trusts to particularly fund that type of work. It makes a massive impact. So, who are the RNLI? Big year this year for us, yeah? It's our 200th birthday back in March. We were founded in 1824, 200th year, and we're still going. We are, as I'm sure you're aware, a charity that is volunteer-based. 95% of our people are volunteers, and we number about 39 to 40,000 in number, but 95% volunteers. We have 5,700 plus volunteer operational crew in 238 or so lifeboat stations. 4,000 plus volunteer shore crew. Without the shore crew, we can't launch. So even though we might have operational crew that are going to go on the boat, if we haven't got the launch crew, the boat can't go to sea. So they are as important as the operational crew. So this would be people like the tractor drivers, yeah, and others. And we have 119 volunteer lifeguards. The majority of our lifeguards are paid, but we have 119 that volunteer as well. And we have over 23,000 volunteer community fundraisers. Without them, we would struggle to operate. So, saving lives is with your help. We have a spend last year of 188 million. which is around £500,000 a day, and that is predominantly spent on our lifeboats. That's our biggest cost by far. Property and maintenance, they're our two biggest costs. We're constantly having to repair our lifeboat stations, but also as well we're having to develop our lifeboat stations to take the capability of the new boats. A lot of our lifeboat stations are based on very old lifeboats, and they can't physically take the new lifeboats and be able to launch and store them properly. And some of the old lifeboat stations didn't even have crew rooms, so the crew are literally getting changed in places which are not suitable, and particularly with a much more diverse crew now, where we have a lot more females who are on the crew, which is excellent. It's not appropriate or right. So a lot has been spent on our infrastructure and also on our boats. And 6 in 10 launches, that really means 60% of our income comes from legacies, which is very important to us. So what is our approach? Our approach is to save everyone. We keep our people safe as well, to try and we're asking volunteers to go to sea in extreme conditions, at night, in dark, in dangerous conditions, undertaking dangerous activities, particularly when it comes to towing larger vessels, and our priority is to keep our people safe. We focus on what will save most lives in and around the water. So again, we're very much focused, and we have our watch, which is our strategy, which is available on the internet, which tells exactly what the RNLI's purpose is and what our objectives are. And we do lots of working with partners to influence and improve safety on beside the water. So a classic partner would be BSAC. We work quite closely with BSAC. And we talk quite a lot. Give you an idea on our activities with our life-saving statistics. Last year we rescued and assisted with our crews and lifeguards just under 40,000 people. That could be everything from pulling someone out of the sea who was drowning to someone maybe with a weaver fish sting, on the beach with a lifeguard. And 506 lives were saved by RNLI crews and lifeguards. This is a very hot topic. If you go into a lifeboat station, they always would like to talk to you about how many lives they've saved. So after every shout, they have to put a report in. So they put a report in, la-di-da-di-da, drop-down box menus, and it will then go through, if it was a really harrowing rescue where potentially life was saved, it will then go through a certain process where it will actually come out and say, yes, that life was saved by that lifeboat or that action or that crew. And that's for them is a life saved. So they get quite uppity if it comes back and it goes, no, that wasn't a life saved. That person's life wouldn't necessarily have, they wouldn't necessarily have died if you had not been there at that time. So they always fight to have every shout if they can be as a life saved. But 506 lives were saved. And 98% of our incidents are within 10 miles of the shore. And that diagram there shows every single shout from 2023. So there are a lot of activities. You'll see that you've got 1 or 2 dodgy ones in here, That's because when they put it into the system, they put the wrong coordinates down. So our lifeboats aren't operating in Birmingham. But here, this lot here, that'll be the Thames, where we have 4 lifeboat stations on the Thames. And Tower Lifeboat Station is the busiest lifeboat station in the country. More shouts than any other station, has over 700 a year. Permanent crew on there, 24/7, 365 days of the year, sitting there with their wellies and their dry suits, just sitting there by the boat. So they're constantly jumping into them. So that's a lot. And the second busiest lifeboat station, Chiswick, just up the road. Again, with a 24/7, 365 crew. And that crew, both Tower and Chiswick, is a mix of staff, paid crew, and volunteers. And they work on a shift system. So constantly changing 2 shifts a day.
What are the sort of incidents that they're dealing with compared to...
Yeah, good question. And I think you're probably going to know what I'm going to tell you. Self-harm. By a massive amount. Towers, probably 80% self-harm. My particular patch is London. I look after the prevention teams in London, the M25 corridor. There was one Sunday, I get all of the stats come into my computer for the country, for shouts, it comes from the Coast Guard. And there was one Sunday in the summer where they got called out 5 times, all to self-harm. And they will be there, I'm not going to talk about it too much because it's not really the topic, but I mean, they could be sitting there with legs dangling, you know, and the lifeboat sitting under. They have one shout, one chance to rescue that person. Person hits the water, they bob up once and they tend to go down. It's horrific, horrific. And it's work that we're getting more and more involved in. We're not going to be the leaders of it because there are others far better placed, but we're there very much working in partnership and giving support to others. Right, let's see if this plays. Hopefully it will. A little bit of a film just about the lifeboats. Got to have an RNLI film, haven't you? There we go. Boat at the bottom, that's our newest lifeboat. That's the Shannon, which we actually make it pull. And the top one is the biggest lifeboat of our fleet, which is the 7. Absolutely amazing bit of kit, that bottom one. Amazing bit of kit. But I won't go talking about that because, yeah, sidelined. So, lifeboat statistics. We launched 9,300 times last year. We aided 16,500 people. The lifeboats saved 389 lives. And 45 people aided each day on average every day of the year. So we're quite busy. And that's a little bit, launches was up a little bit last year. It's normally around about 8,500, somewhere around about there, so we're up a little bit. And this is that extra slide, I was having to put a bit of diving stuff in as well. So this particular graph has come from the BSAC Instructor report, which is superb. And in 2023 we were called out 37 times. Now the good news about that is that if you consider how many launches we go out to, yeah, we were only called out 37 times to divers, which tells me that, to be honest, most dive clubs who have got boats, and of course there's not that many clubs that do have boats, you're lucky that you do. In fact, you tend not to break down too much, yeah, because most of our call-outs to boats are normally to mechanical breakdown. It's not searching for a diver, it'll be because you break down, yeah, because you run out of fuel, because you've got water in your fuel, because you haven't had your engine serviced, yeah. You dive clubs as a whole, I have to be honest, you run good boats, yeah. We don't get called out too much because of that, which is good. 29 of these were in May out of 37. So May was the hot month. Yeah. Why is that? Why do you think?
Bank
May.
holidays?
Sorry?
It's the May bank holiday, more people go there.
Nah, it's because
Out of practice.
bingo, start of the dive season. Yeah, the boats probably haven't been used up until then. Yeah. The sun's come out, yippee boat gets launched. Yeah. So it's normally the start of the season. It used to be Easter, March, April. Used to see the mass increases, but now it's just shifted on a little bit. Also 2023, helicopters were called out 30 times to divers. 8 of these were in May, June, July and August, September. Again, September was a particularly busy month for the rescue service in helping divers. The rescues have shifted. In the last 10 years, we've seen it go from that sort of March, August, April time, finishing around August. It's now shifted through to May and September. That tells you a little bit about climate changing as well. Yeah, you fair weather a lot, I like to go when it's warmer. Yeah, so it's just shifting across a little bit. And that's our fleet of lifeboats. The Mersey, actually that one can come off because the last one's just been taken out of service last month. And we've been told that there is going to be a brand new lifeboat coming into our fleet, and it will be actually purchased. It's an existing one that the Dutch use. Because we're going more to more inshore, so the RNLI was set up, we think, to going out more offshore in the old days. It's more inshore stuff because there are things like water swimmers are going in, suppers, paddleboarders. We're getting called more inshore. We need a boat which is able to do that more effectively for us. So we've got a range of different boats. And the E-Class, that one down the bottom, that's the boat that's only on the Thames. So if you're ever up in London and you're walking over Blackfriars Bridge, you look down at the new Tower Lifeboat Station, that's the boat you see bobbing there. We
use a hovercraft.
We use hovercrafts, yeah. A good example of a place with a hovercraft is Southend-on-Sea. Very, very big tidal range, mud flats, and people getting stuck in the mud. So they use the hovercraft whenever it's a really muddy estuarine place. Then there are hovercrafts which go out and pick them up. They're pretty cool. I've never been on one, but normally the hovercrafts, when they come back from service, are just, they go out orange, they come back black and grey and muddy and clay. They just get clagged. But they save many a life. And the crews are specifically trained on those hovercrafts. We build all the new Shannon in Poole. If you're ever down in Poole and you want to have a tour around the production facility, there are tours. Cost you about £5. They run, you can book them up ahead. They don't run them every day, but they're fascinating. You actually see them building the lifeboats. And we have our inshore lifeboat centre at Cowes on the Isle of Wight, and they build all of our ribs and our inflatables, our D-Class and the 85s. Lifeguards, little film on the lifeguards. What you're looking at in this film, you notice how they're bringing the people in over the constant, over the tubes? Backwards. So if you've got any children looking for summer jobs, we always recruit lifeguards, even with no prior experience. You can get paid for being on the beach all summer and get all the training from the RNLI. So obviously you need to be relatively close to a coast, but worth noting. The stats are 23,200 people raided, and there were nearly 19,000 incidents actioned by the RNLI lifeguards and 117 life saved. And we're on around about, it varies a little bit, about 250 beaches all around the country. Right, yeah.
So what's the difference between the lifeguard service you're providing and typically town-based?
Yeah, good question. So the way we operate the lifeguard services, there is beholden upon any landowner, national trust, councils, boroughs, to provide a certain level of service on their coastline. And they will do a risk assessment, a beach risk assessment. We actually do those for a lot of the councils. If it's perceived that there's a risk, then they're beholden to do action. So they've got a choice. They can do it themselves, or they can come to us. And what we do is we provide the full McCoy, all of the trained lifeguards, all the resources, all of these, the jet skis, the flags, the beach hut, there's lifeguard huts, all for free to them. And the normal deal is that the council have to pay the wages for the lifeguards. It's a pretty sweet deal, but the council still moan. They still whinge because they know they've got us a little bit. Because they know that if they say no, we can't afford it, and we're going to take the risk of letting people potentially drown. You know we won't. So it's a little bit of Russian roulette. It's a bit of sort of that standoff between the councils and us. So negotiations are had, but we now become quite tough about it. But there are some beaches that we do want to be on. West Wittering Beach, my local beach, which many of you may know. Very busy beach, lots of incidents. We want to be on it. We're in negotiations. A couple of times they've asked us to do it, and it got to the point where we said, yeah, we'll do it, won't cost you a bean. We'll pay the whole lot. But what we want in return is that we can fundraise. We do fundraising, which will be the way we get our money. And it went to final ratification, and the board, who are a slightly elderly board, didn't want to give up control of anything, so they didn't do it. So it's that sort of thing. It's down to negotiation. Negotiations start about now with the landowners. Okay, a little bit about diving safety. Now, I'm not going to try and teach you to suck eggs. So this isn't turning into a BSAC diving safety lecture where I'm going to take you all the way back to basics and teach you stuff that you would have got in your BSAC courses. What I want to do is put a little bit maybe insight into my experience. So as I say, I've been diving for quite a while, had dive centres, we were out dive boats, we had 2 ribs that we operated commercially, 2 8-metre ribs out from down at Bracklesham. So I've spent tens of thousands of hours literally on dive boats, taught lots of divers, and seen lots of divers come through my door. So a little bit what I'm going to put up for you now is some of that experience, and also what we know as divers are probably the main causes of incidents, certainly coming out through the BSAC incident report, and also from our return to service from the lifeboats. I'm sure there's nothing here that you're going to say, well, I didn't know, but maybe I'm going to put a slightly different spin on some of it. But I want to make this interactive, so I'm going to want some feedback from you guys. All right? I want you to be honest. Can you promise me that you're going to be honest when I ask you some questions? Right? So when I ask you a question, I want to see everyone's hands go down here. Yeah, I want you to be honest with me, because we all learn. And I think that's the main thing that I'm going to sort of say. Is certainly when I was diving, it was definitely a bit of a culture of shit, you've got away with that. Yeah, when I tell like that, that's not good. Speak up. If anything even was a near miss, or not even close to near miss, you had a small little, I don't know, let's say a fin strap snap. Yeah, it's worth mentioning. And actually, as a diving community in the UK, we want to try and encourage more of this reporting. Yeah, even the small stuff. Because if you start finding that you've got a base layer of 1,000 fin snaps going, you would bet your bottom dollar a few of those might cause more of an incident. And I could go off on tangent here, and I could tell you about a fatality that occurred in the 1990s, where it all started with a fin strap snapping. And within 10 minutes, that diver was dead. So we mustn't ignore even the small stuff. So, first thing to say, and it was mentioned at the very beginning, is that there is such a thing called the BDSG. Have you ever heard of that? British Diving Safety Group. I know we sort of work in the sort of the shadows. So the BDSG has been going for probably about 12 years. It is chaired by the RNLI, by us, and every single major organisation or training agency or anything to do with diving has a seat at the table, and we meet 4 times a year. In fact, we are going to do an online meeting on Friday morning. So anybody that has got some clout in the diving industry sits at the table, and we travel around the country for the other 3 meetings, and everyone makes the effort in attending. So from BSAC we get Jim Watson come, and sometimes Mary as well, technically, she'll be there. And we also get, I can never say her name right, and I apologise.
Sophie Hempstead.
Thank you. I always want to say it wrong. I'm terrible with names. Sophie's there as well, yeah. So normally Sophie and Jim are there, which is great. We get PADI, we get RYA, SAA, now everyone you'll see on that list, including the HSE, the MOD, and over the last 5 years we've got lots of the preeminent diving doctors as well in there. We have the DDRC, turn up every time, bit of diving chamber, but we have lots of others, yeah. So it is basically everyone leaves their baggage at the door, everyone gets on in that room, and it's all just towards diving safety. So lots of talk and interworking between ourselves to try and improve diving safety. So, key safety messages, and a lot of these come out through the BDSG. So, first one, always plan your dives, checking the weather and tides. And you get that rammed into you so often, yeah, that I'm not going to labour on what you've got to do about it, but from an RNLI point of view, when we're looking for a diver who has been on a wreck 5 miles out in the English Channel, it's normally because they haven't been diving on slack. And it's 3 hours after a high water on a 5 metre range spring tide. And funny enough, they're no longer on the wreck. And I can tell you a few stories about that. Actually, from a wishing diver's point of view, I never had to call out the RNLI for my 16 years for a missing diver. I've had to get towed back in again because I had a throttle cable snap, but that's another story. But from missing divers, not. But I had in my early days when we had our dive centre in a cabin at Bognor, on Bognor Seafront, very, very beginning, diver knocking on my door Sunday in July, dripping wet, just as we're about closing up, going, we've got a diver missing. Really, where? Oh, we were diving the wreck you were diving this morning. That was the, I don't want to say Caratan, it's not the Caratan. It's a wreck off near the Gascony, out on the Owers, and names escape me now. Oh, North Coast, that's right, HMS North Coast. Out there, and I talked to my boatman who said, oh yeah, a rig turned up just as we were leaving. So just as we were leaving was, guess what, off slack. And they were diving in waves, and the diving officer was the one who was missing, because he was diving with a novice, and 30 metres, and he was using his lifting bag as his S&B. Incident pit, yeah. He was picked up by the lifeboat about 8 miles due west, having gone through overfalls. And when they picked him up, they picked him up, and the helicopter was out searching as well, but the lifeboat actually picked him up, and then the helicopter picked up the diver and took him off. He survived, but he wasn't in a good way. Yeah. So, always worth it, yeah, always worth it. And we used to take out dive groups from the Midlands. I shouldn't really say this, but they come out and they go, whoa, my God, yeah, I didn't like that. Why? Oh, the water was moving, yeah. And there were waves, you know, waves about this big out on the Mulberry, you know. So again, no concept of that tide and weather. And also what happens when the tide changes against the wind and what the sea can do and everything else. So, it's that old adage, isn't it? Yeah, piss poor planning produces piss poor results. So, make sure that you understand the tide and weather when you're coastal. Always conduct a thorough body check. Now, I know that sounds boring, and I'm sure you will do it. But, body check. This one, one honest answer, all right? How many people do a body check every time they go diving? Okay, right. Yeah, and I want an honest answer. So, is that in the club environment, okay? So now you're going off diving with your mate to the Red Sea, and you're on a liveaboard for a week, and it's not a club, not a Guildford BSAC club dive, you just go with your mate. Might be your partner, your wife, friend, whatever. Do you do a thorough body check before you go in every time?
Yeah.
Oh, honest?
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Thanks for being honest. And for those of you who do put your hands up, even more thank you. Yeah. I mean, I've done probably, I stopped recording after about 1,500 dives, but I've probably done about 2,500 dives. And I dive with my wife. I have dived with my wife predominantly when we're diving recreationally. And I will do a body check. I won't do it as like I'm doing it with a student, but I will still do a body check with my wife. And it won't be, you know, showing each of the gauge. We'll check the gauges, and we'll make sure that we know what our kit is, that it's all connected, hoses, and we go over there. You don't laugh like a plum when you jump off without your fins on, don't you? Or without your weight belt. So, those are the points. So always do that buddy check. I still can tell you stories about divers going off the back of my rib. A twin tip diver who's really gobby went over the back of the dived with me loads, went off the back of the rib, splosh, and I could just see his head bobbing at the back, panicking. Yeah, because he hadn't turned his head. Yeah, he turned it on and turned it off. Had those couple of breaths. You know what it's like, thought that's fine. Didn't do the check, didn't do the needle check, went over, and then just bob it. And I literally could grab the scruff of his hood and put him back up. Spluttering. Never did that again. So, buddy check, buddy check, buddy check. Yeah, because again, a number of incidences and have occurred through something simple, just not having a direct feed hose connected. Yeah. And not being familiar with the kit. Right, each diver carry their own surface marker buoy. Is that something you do as divers?
Yes.
Yeah.
You carry your own one, yeah?
Yes.
Not RNLI, Bob's got one, so he's all right. Okay, now I'm not going to go through lots of SMBs. I've got a lovely pile here, but I am a bit anal about it. I will always have an SMB. Don't know where I'm diving, yeah? And I'll have the classic AP valves one, yeah? Deployable, yeah? Double coloured one here. Wouldn't get all talking about colours. AP valves produced a black one, which I always thought was quite amusing. I'm quite sure they tried to argue the reason why they stopped making it after a while. I will carry two, yeah? That would be the one I tend to go to, and I'm a recreation diver, by the way, I'm not a techie. When nitrox came out in the 90s, I called it the devil gas. I said it would never take off. How wrong was I? And so I dive nitrox, but I'm not a technical diver. I don't dive any mixed gas of any other sort. And I'm not a particular deep head. So I was happy to go to 30, 40 metres. I think DD7B is 50. But you know, that's the type of diver I am. So I'm just part type of recreational diver. So the one thing I will do is, so always take an S&B, but if you are diving maybe slightly more extreme places, it's worth taking something like this one, which I just absolutely love. So it's reasonably compact, got its separate clip. I think they call this the Big John. Look at this. I haven't even still unrolled it the whole way. I'll grab the end of that bit. Right? AP valves. It is lost. The great thing about this is that when you inflate it, and you inflate it off your direct feed hose, yeah? Really clever these. You've seen these before, I'm sure you have, yeah? Direct standard direct feed hose. Your normal direct feed, doesn't it? It has a little bit of a groove in where the ball bearings of your hose click in, yeah? This doesn't have it, so it actually can't grip it. So it inflates it, but of course it comes straight off, yeah? I mean, the thing about this one is it inflates the whole way up. You've got rooms to put silooms in and strobes and all sorts of stuff on the top of it. Is that when it's fully inflated, you get your foot out, or with your fin on, slip your foot on it, and you push down on it. So what this does then is go up vertical in the water column, and it's constantly vertical. So from an RNLI perspective, I'm going to play a film in a minute of a coxswain bemoaning when he has to look for divers because he can never freaking find us. And people think they've got an S&B, and therefore, I'm going to be found, I've got an S&B. Now, people really struggle to see an S&B. So this thing overcomes it because it's constantly vertical. So that moment that coxswain on that lifeboat is looking for divers, Sodwell says your S&B's down there, yeah? Because you've just gone into a trough and you haven't got full length on your line, and then as it goes, the wave goes up again, it comes up, and he's missed it. That you're never going to get missed. Right? So that's the sort of one, you wouldn't necessarily deploy it from 30 metres, because you use up the hole in your tank to fill it. Yeah? But that's the one when you get to the surface, it's quite a good one to have attached and just inflate up. Yeah? Particularly if you know you're in an area where there's strong currents and there is higher risk of you potentially not being easily seen. And then it takes you about 6 hours to roll back up again afterwards. Oh, we're not going to go through them all. It's like a sales pitch this, and I'm going back to my old retail mode, aren't I? There are various other S&Bs around on the market, all with various different things. There's this one, which is done by custom divers, and they put radar reflecting material in the very end of it. So on a boat's radar, you've got more chance it will ping. It won't ping on these, but it will ping on this one. So if someone's looking for you, they'll see a dot, yeah, and it picks up on the radar, which is quite handy. And there's another one on the table there where they have a pocket at the bottom of it, where you can put your torch into it, and it goes into the S&B. Your S&B becomes a massive day glow. So for dusk or night diving, it is brilliant, because your whole S&B starts to glow orange. So there's a few things out there, you know, that's worth just looking out for. And that's why I said, just want to get you thinking, right? I'm not saying you should all go out and buy it and look like a blooming Christmas tree with 6 S&Bs on it, but maybe rather than just going for the usual one, just think a little bit about maybe what some of the options are. Okay? So this is a film, that's a short film, and it's close to my heart because it's the old coxswain of Selsey lifeboat station, yeah, who has done quite a few searches for divers over the years.
In my career, we've had quite a few incidents with divers, missing divers, lost divers, etc. And providing they're not had a problem on the bottom and not surfaced, then generally we've been fairly successful in finding them. We've had incidents where we've searched for hours, and just, you know, when the lights fail, you think you're not going to find somebody, all of a sudden you come across them, or perhaps possibly the helicopter will spot them. But the important thing is, if the more visible they are, the more chance we have of finding them. Every diver should carry an SMB, but the number of divers that enter the water without an SMB, it's unbelievable that they can do it. We've got a lot of boat traffic with a lot of fishermen coming in and out, and it's just so dangerous.
So certainly when I had my dive shop, we would keep S&Bs on the boat with a reel, because a number of divers would come on. We tried to sieve it in the shop, we wouldn't let people on, yeah, unless they had an S&B and reel. They just thought we were trying to flog them one. Yes, of course I was a retailer. But the first reason was safety, always safety. So, already done that. How many of you carry S&Bs and have you dive? Loads. Something to consider is how best to call for help. So now we're in the situation where you are separated from your boat for whatever reason. Your S&B's up, and you thought, I'm confident that I'll be seen. You're not, and you're off drifting. Yeah. Think not just UK, think also abroad. Red Sea, Maldives, other far-flung places, big strong currents. That's where consideration of electronic devices like PLBs come into it. Again, I'm not going to try and go through them all, but basically a PLB, that's a personal locator beacon, works anywhere in the world, anywhere on the planet, up on Mount Everest, middle of the Sahara, it doesn't matter. It's very simple, has an aerial on it, needs to be clear line of sight of the sky, and you press a button and it transmits for 24 hours. You've registered it in the UK, and the main Coast Guard Centre at Fecher has dedicated screens for PLBs, and basically you press the button and the alarms go off on the screen, and it gives coordinates of exactly where that PLB has been set off from. We have, the other advantage for it is that once they know where it is, they will either send out like the Egyptian rescue services to come and get you, or good luck. Or if it's in the UK, it'll be predominantly an RNLI asset, or maybe a helicopter. And they give them the GPS coordinates that come on the screen, but as they get close to those coordinates, these emit a homing signal as well, 121.5 megahertz. So then the lifeboat can come right into your position. And they're not waterproof as such, but they're waterproof to about sort of 7, 10, 15 metres, depending on the brand. But you can buy a Delrin pot from Custom Divers, and it can just go in there, and it just sits inside when you're webbing, as just a sort of security. I'm not necessarily saying every diver buys one, but if the type of diving you're doing, you think is quite potential for use for one of these, then it's worth buying. We had a diver who approached us who actually had one, bought one, and he used it about 10 years ago it was now, and he was a tech diver on the Lizard, and he'd actually gone 9 miles one way, and he was coming on the tide back before he was picked up, and he was picked up by a warship, British warship, because he had a Modo PLB that he let off. He was doing a 3-hour hang, yeah, and it's the typical incident pit. Missed the decompression station, went up with his buddy, separated with his buddy, had numerous S&Bs, including a big one, set that up, yeah, could see the dive boat, but they couldn't see him, and off he went. And so he set it off his PLB, and that's how he got found. So 3 hours on a hang, you imagine how far he is going underneath an S&B. Yeah, that was off the lizard, so it was really rocketing. But that was my very quick hard sell on a PLB. I'm moving on. I'm glad you asked, sir. So, there are a couple of manufacturers, that's an example, or this is an example of one that we actually have, all our crews have in their life jackets. These are about 225 quid, battery lasts about 10 years, and then you send it back to manufacturer for service and battery replacement. They'll import to about 70 quid.
That's satellite based.
That's satellite, yeah.
You can get them with the channel 16 on as well, can't you?
I didn't want to go down this route because I'm very, very quickly, alright? PLBs are satellite based, boom, yeah?
Yeah.
One brand new one out on the market, that one has got DSC, PLB, and something called an AIS MOB. And
How
yeah.
much is it?
Oh, this is fantastic. This is the first ever PLB that can be automatically deployed. You can start automatically. AIS MOB you can put in a life jacket, for instance, and you can be knocked out, it inflates and sets up automatically. These can also be put in life jackets, and the PLB and the AIS MOB will be set off automatically. Otherwise, they have to be manually. These are 500 quid. And they don't make a pot yet that for you as a diver can take it underwater. So you let off and buy this one for a diver. Yeah, but they're coming.
You've got 20 of them in your bag. You've got 20 in your bag.
Sorry, 20 what?
You've got 20 of them in your bag.
I just sent you somewhere and I got a cut.
Yeah.
No, the PLBs, if I was sitting where you are and I was listening to Mr. Boring RNLI man up here, way in the day, I would have thought, no, I'm not wasting 250 quid on a PLB. Nah, I want to buy the new computer. New Sunday Dive computers. But reality is when you want it, you will pay any money for it. Yeah, because it's your last ditch. They are fantastic PLBs. And also, if you're a dog walker or whatever, or you're a mountain biker, or you're a skier, then you take it with you as well. So you're totally covered. And the advantage of that is someone knows you're in distress. Yeah.
Even in Egypt, man of boats.
100%. So I'm going to give an example. There's a diver who also was a hill walker, climber type, and he went to New Zealand, fell in a ravine, broke his leg, couldn't get out of it, had his PLB, which he bought ostensibly for diving, set it off, MMOC, Fairham, alarm goes off, and it comes up, Mr. Joe Smith, registered in, whatever, Surbiton, and they also on the screen, because when you register it, you put in your partners or a contact number. They called, and they said, yeah, we've got a PLB registered to Joe Smith gone off in New Zealand. Oh yeah, he's out climbing in New Zealand, at the moment. Oh, not to worry you, madam. And then they'll contact New Zealand, who will then go out and they pull him out of a ravine. Been in there for a day or so, alive, and without that, he would have been dead. So you can use it anywhere on the planet, as long as you've pre-registered it, and that signal will always come down to the Coast Guard at Fairham. As long as you registered here. If you register it in France, it will go to wherever it is in France, etc., etc. Food for thought, all right? We'll move on. Okay, so once found, yeah, and remember, divers are a little spot in the ocean. Yeah, so Martin, when he talked about it, he hated going out. They normally say when they go out looking for a diver, they already written off the next 8 hours, because that's how long they think it'll take, even longer. There was a diver lost up only last week in Scapa, and the crews were out for, I think, 24 hours on a rotation basis looking for him. We all know, unfortunately, the diver's likely to be underwater, yeah? But they've got to treat it as it could be on the surface. So they will be looking. So, once found, how best to recover the diver? So I know you've got ribs, and I presume, do you do most of your diving from ribs? Okay, so, got a couple of scenarios for you. You as divers get into the ribs. Have you got ladders on your boat?
Yeah.
Oh, that's one.
One.
Maybe I'm having a can of worms here, but plush. I put a ladder in our boats as well. So if you've got a ladder, that's fine. But let's say we've got a diver who's come out and had a little bit of a scare, yeah? And you know what happens? The energy just soaks out of them, yeah? So you're going to have to help this diver out of the water, because they can't get up the ladder. So how do you go about doing that?
You could deflate the tube, so it goes right down.
You could do, it's blowing force 5, wind's increasing.
Won't
Yeah.
go diving.
No, but it's increasing. It's gone up since you went out, and you'll call it out a little bit. Yeah, we've all been there. Yeah,
Depends if you like them or not.
and it always happens. Sod's law comes in, doesn't it? Front come see, no problem. As soon as something like that, Sod's law coming in, that's when things will happen. So you could deflate the tube, but then might be a bit tricky. Normally you obviously take the kit off, wouldn't you? Yeah, that would be brought in, and then there'd be two of you normally, maybe underneath the arms, going the classic 1, 2, fin, and you pull them in. Yeah, normally belly first, don't we? Yeah. Whereas you see the RNLI and the love guards, they take them in back first. Yeah. Okay, but what if you're the solo cox? Yeah. What if you're just the one person left in the boat? Which is often the case when I was coxing, I'll be the only one in the boat. And that's when Sod's law comes in. So we've now got a diver on the surface who is in distress, who isn't able to help themselves. Yeah. Or no, let's take it one back to back. We've got a diver who actually probably can help themselves, but is not able to get into the boat. So rather than deflating the tube, how else can you get them into the boat?
With a rope.
You're only on your own. And I'm going to be a little bit unkind. This diver is 20 stone plus.
Tow him.
Tow him. I know somebody's done that before. Sorry?
Remove the heat out.
Yeah, you've got to get the kit off. Yeah, you can get the kit off them. Yeah.
You can actually just use a rope to attach them and keep them safe until
Yeah.
you've got someone there to help.
That is definitely an option, but the trouble is then you're restricting yourself manoeuvring to pick up divers. And already the tide's starting to go, and the bozo of your dive club has surfaced 300 metres down current off the wreck and is going further. It's Sod's law. Yeah, it will happen. Yeah. So how else can you get them up? Think, what have you got which might help? The ladder they struggle with, yeah? Because some people do struggle with ladders.
The engine.
Yeah, some of you could be the engine. Yeah, you might find the engine actually is better. Turn the engine off, of course, yeah? Have it turned off. And use the skeg, because sometimes that is a little bit easier for people to get them up and you can pull them in over the back. I'm not saying it is the absolute only way of doing it, yeah? But there's some things that you're not going to have necessarily an answer for all the time, yeah?
So what's this pulling up backwards rather than
They deem it being easier to get them in the boat, yeah, to bring them in that way. They also think as well it protects the individual a bit more as well, particularly for the head flopping over, yeah, and potentially hitting stuff, yeah. So they tend to do it 1, 2, 3, back up in that way. I always, for me, would worry about my back because it's not bending. Yeah, I'm trying to bend that way. But that's the way that they do it, yeah. And you see the way they do it. They practice it quite a lot. They do it with their hands underneath the armpit, yeah, and then sort of bring them straight. And they tend to be quite fit individuals, yeah. When it comes to the lifeboats, they tend to bring people in through davit and through a winch. Particularly on the bigger boats, they swing a davit out and an arm out, and then they just winch them up, yeah. Or the big lifeboatman comes and he just literally pulls them up through the pulley block, yeah. But all the lifeboats, particularly the Shannon, you see where it's cut, the back end's quite high, that it really dips down about midships. In fact, it's only that far off the water, and they can pull people up. Right, this is the situation. What if the diver's unconscious? So you've got an unconscious diver, yeah? There's only 2 of you, and it's your mate who's 20 stone, yeah? How do you get them into your rib? Someone mentioned something about a rope.
Power buckle.
That is the way. Does anyone else know bar buckling? Have you ever heard of the term bar buckling?
Yeah.
Or even know what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, so can someone like to tell me how you would bar buckle?
Put a rope down the side round, and when you pull the rope, it forms the pulley.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to use that clip, but I'm just going to show you a schematic. So if you can imagine, take that block there as your tube, all right? That's the tube of the boat, yeah? You've got one piece of rope, one end of the rope, you put across the boat and tie on to something on the other tube, like a handle or something, yeah? So that bit of rope comes across, comes over the tube, goes down in the water in a loop and round, yeah? Your diver is floating horizontal, you get him over that floating bit of rope, and then you get that loopy bit here, and you need 2 people really. It's quite hard to do it with one actually, to be honest. You need 2. And that bit of rope basically will come up, if I was the diver, up over my shoulder and probably just up over my thighs, the other one. And you together go 2, 3, and you roll them up the tube. And it's remarkably how easy it is actually to put them up. So what I would say to do is, if you get a chance when you're out in your boat, have a practice. Give it a go. Yeah, give it a go. It's a really nice way of getting into the boat. Just look after the head when you bring them out in though. Yeah, don't just suddenly pull them over and smack them into the console. Do take a bit of care. You can do it with one bit of rope, but there are commercial nets available where you have a similar system. They pack down quite compactly, and there's basically a mesh net which does exactly the same thing, and it's a little bit more comfortable for the victim to bring it back up. Yeah, palm buckling. Really good, simple, effective way of getting someone into a rib.
Straps
Well,
also a good way.
Yeah.
We've been practicing the pool with using lifting straps that you'd
Yeah.
have on a lorry.
Okay. Oh, you've been practicing it?
More comfortable.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm impressed.
trying
I
lifting
don't think I've
straps.
ever come across anyone else that has. Yeah. I've had to use it maybe once or twice. I used to teach it when I was doing battling courses for divers. That's only because I knew I could get a diver in the water, so it was easy to do. But we used to practice it quite a lot. But it's a really good technique. Worth having a practice when you're out in the club. Club dive, obviously not when you've got divers in the water, when it's calm and everything else, but give it a go. Okay? Fifth message there, make sure your equipment has been serviced and is in date. I know that is an easy thing to say, and particularly at the moment, I imagine servicing now is not cheap. But I think some of the manufacturers are now going to 2 years servicing, aren't they, rather than annual servicing with some of the regs and things. But yeah, it's just one thing we've got to do. Having had a service bay in my shop, and we did a lot of servicing, some of the stuff that came through our service bay was disgusting. Surprised the regulators even still worked. Even after, we had one customer came in after a service of a reg, went out to the Red Sea, came back in and saying their reg stopped working after about 4 dives on a liverboard. The gauge, contents gauge needles went up really slowly, and they were struggling to breathe from it. Was a bit pissed, to be honest. So technician was working, so he said, okay, oh no worries, let's strip it down and have a look. And just one look at it, and you had compacted aluminium oxide straight through the sintered filter. You know that filter on that first stage when you look in? It was completely flat with aluminium oxide, which was basically the dust from out of the tank. Just, it must have been horrific inside the dive tanks they were using. So when he opened it up, he literally just tipped powder out on the first stage after 4 dives. And that was after 1 dive, because people say, oh no, I used it a couple of times. Don't matter, you only have to use it once to get contaminants going in. Yeah, so basically what it was stopping the air going through. Yeah. So regulator's been serviced, but also your BCD once in a while, dry suit valves, etc. And then the last thing, which is particular mantra for us for the RNLI and our key message, is divers should regularly get health checks with a healthcare professional registered diving doctor. So as we get older, our cardiac health isn't as good as it used to be, and therefore we've just got to keep that in mind. We know from the diving incidents that they're predominantly age-related and cardiac-related. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to stop diving, but it's just good to get a health check, particularly on your cardiac health. And the other thing that's related is IPO. Emotional pulmonary edema, is that something that's talked about in lectures and things? Because certainly in my day, I don't know what the hell that meant. No one talks about it. This is over the last 4 or 5 years, and it's particularly through the work of BSAC and Jim Watson and Pete Ronshurst, who identified IPO as probably being the one big potential killer, actually, because it's just not talked about or known about. So if I'm not going to try and talk to you about IPO, but there's a QR code there which takes you to the BSAC website, everything you need to know about IPO. But would you know what the signs and symptoms of an IPO are on a diver underwater?
Yes.
Could be some.
Underwater.
So I'm diving with you, for instance. How would I know that you might be suffering from an IPO?
Struggling to breathe even though they've got gas.
Yeah, struggling to breathe is the classic. It's the normal one with the regulator, they take the regulator, spit the regulator out and they come straight for your reg, because they're regulating working. They might even go to their octopus and they'll spit that out. They think their regulator ain't working. What's happening is they're struggling to breathe. Yeah. So the IPO doesn't cause the fatality, but it's the very start of it. It's not the reason why you die because for another reason, but it is the cause, the start of it. So recognising what an IPO is, and the only way you can avoid the IPO when the symptoms come on is to exit the water, to come up. But they're now starting, BSAC are looking back through all of their data to analyse each fatality to see if they think IPO may have been involved. And they're starting to realise that more and more of the fatalities over the years, probably IPO has been there. And it's an easy one to avoid. Okay? So we've just asked as well, beware of causes, how to avoid, recognition and the treatment. Just be up to date with it, knowledgeable. Why do we ask this? Because then you're going to reduce the amount of times we get called out. Yeah? That's ultimately why I'm here, really. Yeah? Don't tell the crew.
Sorry, can I just ask, how do you avoid it?
There's a number of ways of avoiding it. Sometimes it is unavoidable, but it's the usual things you'd expect. Healthy, there's a strong link with cardiac health as well, yeah? And sometimes you just can't avoid it, and actually it's sometimes more prevalent in females than males as well. But it's recognising the signs and symptoms that it might be an IPO coming on, yeah? So if you're struggling to breathe, yeah, in the old days you just blame your regulator and you go for your buddy's regulator, and that still wouldn't work. Is knowing if you're struggling to breathe, yeah, getting hard to breathe, right, it's an IPO. Got a problem, I'm coming up. And me as your buddy would come in there and monitor you, and I would help you all the way up, yeah, and we get out of the water. And as soon as you're out of the water, you'll find that after a while, those signs and symptoms will subside.
Well, this happened to a diver that I was on a boat, and the girl thought that she was having a panic attack.
Classic.
Not for 1 minute did she think that she was having an IPO.
And that's the whole point, you see, because IPOs just wasn't known about up to 5 years ago, I'm going to say, yeah. And it's knowing that what an IPO does and its signs and symptoms is that you can't do anything underwater with it. You have to come on up. Basically, what it is, it's fluid that is collecting a little bit in your lungs due to the pressure difference between your lungs and your body.
As she came up,
yeah,
obviously you're breathing less.
Yeah, and the pressure
less
difference is
air,
different.
So you're
It
not
should
getting
become
enough
less.
oxygen, and so she went unconscious.
And then out. Yeah, but it's knowing that it could be an IPO early. Then it's just say, right, get on up, get out of the water.
Well, she didn't know.
No, she didn't. And that's the reason why I'm making people divers more aware of it. Yeah. So here at the RYA, I'm not going to go into an IPO lecture because that's not what I'm here for.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I would suggest strongly that if you want to know a little bit more about it, just go on the BSAC website. It's fantastic. Has got a lot of information on IPO, including a talk by Pete Wilmshurst, which is half an hour, which is absolutely brilliant. And just gen a little bit more up yourself with it, yeah? And I think you'll find it's worth the 10 minutes of doing it, yeah? So if you're unfamiliar with IPO, BSAC website, it's fantastic. Lots of information.
And if there is some interest about this, I went to a talk by a diver who's also a GP and who had an IPO incident, and I could maybe invite her to come and do a talk on this if people are interested.
It'd be good. So, how am I doing time-wise? Perfect. Just about there. So, coming to the end, and this is a bit of general, just water safety. And this isn't me trying to teach you to suck eggs. This is me trying to get you to become advocates of water safety. Yeah? And you'll see why. So, if you think the majority of the people that we have to go and rescue have not a clue, didn't expect to get wet that day, yeah? And they don't know what to do when it comes to water. They might actually be from an ethnic background that has been told to just stay away from water, it's scary, don't get in it. So, cold water shock is our biggest killer. I think we've all had cold water shock as divers at some point, I know I have, yeah? You're falling backwards. It's that involuntary reflex of the body. So, sudden change in skin temperature, increased breathing, heart rate can cause panic and lead to drowning quickly. Float to live helps you overcome cold water shock and other emergencies. And this is our main overarching message, the float to live message, and we do a lot of campaigning over it, particularly over the summer. Tilt your head back with ears submerged, relax and try to breathe normally. Move your hands to help you stay afloat. It's okay to leg sink, we all float differently, and spread your arms and legs to improve stability. That is just a simple message to Joe Public. If you fall into water, cold water, or any water really, unexpectedly, fight the panic to thrash, go on your back. Kids would call it the starfish positions, a bit of taught swimming lessons. Head submerged, ears submerged, airway up to nice and clear, away from the water, and just gently scull, and everyone can float. And it's just constantly banging that drum. So the reason why I'm telling you is if you have a conversation with your grandchildren, I bet you they know it already, the float to live. You just sort of say to them, and say, if you fell into the water, what would you do? Oh. They know it, yeah? And then they teach their parents who don't know it.
However you end up in the water this summer, if you get into difficulty, tilt your head back with your ears submerged. Relax and try to breathe normally. Move your hands to help you stay afloat. Remember it, share it, float to live.
Simple message can save your life, and it has saved lives. So lots of our marketing stuff that's in and around, I'm sure you may have seen it or will see it at some point. So it only takes one conversation to help save a life. So that's just that one extra little bit, not particularly dive related. So there we go. I said I'd try and do it to an hour. I don't think that's too bad. Has anybody got any questions?
Can I just say something? It's more of a statement actually, because we, as Guildford BSAC, we actually do a lot of work with the RNLI. We do an annual fundraiser, take boats out to Guildford. And general public are very, very kind and generous, which is great. But we get a lot of questions asked about us, because people who see us divers, they think we're RNLI. But you've given us a huge insight, which is wonderful, so thank you so much for your time doing that, Nick. The Float to Live campaign, we did push that out to the general public last year quite a lot, actually, from some of the material that you gave to us. But clearly we push it out a bit further.
Oh, it's a constant battle. We're slowly making inroads. And it's the same words, phraseology is used by all our partners as well. So we work very closely with Swim England, very closely. We have something called Swim Safe campaign, Swim Safe sessions with young people in open water. But they have now, as of this coming year, working with Swim England and us, with the government, have got swimming and particularly what to do in cold water, so Float to Live, in the curriculum. So the Float to Live message will be taught in schools, and that's a major success.
That's only realistically some of the schools have got swimming pools.
No, it's actually, sorry to interrupt, but yes, but what we've got is really good resources that are taught in classrooms.
Right.
So it's just as important to be in a classroom, using some of the resources and films and materials we've got to get the message across to the kids. So if the kids know what to do when they go in, that's half the battle, And you know what kids do. They will go then in when they're down in on the beach or in the swimming pool, and most of them do it, and then have a little go, But also as well, that float message and that float technique is taught by Swim England, by their swimming teachers, by anyone that does have swimming lessons as well. So we're never going to hit everyone, but it's keep banging the drum. And you guys can have it sounds like you do already, and I'm really pleased that you do, so thank you for doing that. You're already playing your part in it. So again, you don't know, it's that one conversation, you just don't know.
Is there anything, any campaigning on not saving dogs? And I don't mean that in the wrong sense, I mean as in kids jumping in to save their dogs, they die and the dog then
It's the owners of the trouble. So with the RNLI, if there's a dog who is in the water, or get called out to a dog, we're not going out to save the dog. Well, our crews probably are, but we are actually going out to rescue that dog, to stop that dog owner from getting into trouble.
As well as cats.
But the thing
that was London, that is.
But what I meant is there a campaign to actually stop the children jumping in the first place?
Well, it's not children actually, it's more the adults are the bigger problem.
Because there was a 14-year-old boy that stopped the whole of the Thames who jumped in for his dog, and his dog survived and he didn't.
There are more adults that die going after their dogs than the kids. But yes, we do have materials and we do have that message, is under no circumstances going after your dog, because 99.9 times the dog comes out, weighing its tail, a bit knackered, and the owner is still face down in the water. Absolutely right, yeah. Call us out. We'll go out and rescue the cow, horse and dog, just to stop the owner going in after them. That's the reason for doing it. Plus that, the lifeboat, they like going out rescuing dogs. The RNLI loves an animal rescue, makes good press.
Of course.
Like the cat.
Just the cost implications. I mean, on one Sunday we had a dive out down near Swanage or Portland, and we ended up picking up a diver that run out of there, and had been about a mile out, and he'd been sort of towed in by a jet ski, and we actually brought him back in. At that stage we had the lifeboat, the big lifeboat coming out, we had the helicopter, we had the Coast Guard search and rescue on the cliff. This was a bank holiday Sunday, and his mate was on the beach with his girlfriend drinking a bottle of beer and eating ice cream while we were taking the guy back in. Obviously the cost of the helicopter launching, lifeboat, the Coast Guard, they also had an ambulance with medical doctors in it. There's some severe cost
implications. Yeah, absolutely.
How's the Coast Guard work with the RNLI and the costs?
There's nothing. We're a charity. It all comes out of our costs. And the Coast Guard, as you know, is a government-funded organisation, and that money comes out of the taxpayer, basically. So we, as RYA, don't charge for anything. Our services we're a charity, completely free. Very fearsomely independent, so we do wish to continue being a charity. We don't want to accept the government coin, because as soon as you do, you're the women beholden of government policy. So we're fiercely independent, but it is something which we're having to address because our costs are going exponentially. Cost of living is going up, fuel's going up, etc., etc. Running lifeboat service is increasingly expensive. So we're looking at how, number one, the way we look at it with our boats and what type of boat is put is, number one, it's done on risk. Yeah, risk got that coastline. And part of it, what I sort of started by saying is that we've seen the incidents change dramatically over the last 10 years. And now we've got majority, 90, or was it 8% of our shouts are within 10 miles of the coast. That never used to be the case. We used to go out further to go and get the commercial fishermen, blah, 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 blah. But because the coast has been used in a different way, our risk has completely changed. And so, in fact, some of our boats are not the right asset to have. The big sevens class, we still need a big lifeboat to go and do those offshores. But also, well, the efficiencies of the boats, the changing of the better engines, the speed of the boats is such that we can cover a greater area with less big boats, and we can have better assets equipped to deal with the incidents that we're getting called out to. And part of it is costing as well, because running a 7 on diesel, going on out 50 miles to tow in a vessel which might be 30 tonne, that just chews the diesel, plus the fact it's a very high risk for our crews. Towing is the biggest risk for our crews, huge risk. So we want to try and reduce that, and we're going to do that through prevention. Try and reduce the amount of times we have to go out. Yeah, but it's one of those things that, yes, we will never ever not go out because of cost. Let's put it like that, number one. Number one is go out and save that life. Yeah, but we have to be mindful that we as a charity need to spend every pound as carefully as we can, and also try and reduce our costs where we can. But not at the cost of life. Never at the cost of life.
Does the programme Saving Life at Sea get you some income?
Yeah, for sure. And it gets a lot more supporters. Personally, I find it hard to watch sometimes, because, you know, I can pick out stuff that go, yeah, you know, like sea conditions. You know, you can see where the production company have chopped and, you know, and stuff. And my wife particularly doesn't like the fact that when they interview the crew, they're always in their oil skins, sitting with a bunch of dry suits behind, you know, because that's not that realistic for us. But for the general public who aren't that familiar with lifeboats, they absolutely love it. And they've commissioned the next series. We're on about series 10 now, I think. Yeah. I keep seeing people I know as well, which also is quite amazing.
On the topic of rescuing an unconscious diver with a boat, what's your view on having one of these nets you mentioned on the boat? Because I've tried to pick a diver with a rope.
It takes practice.
It takes a lot of practice,
yeah,
and I think a net would be much
easier. A net is a lot easier. That's the reason why they're there. They're freely available. You can pick them up easily from. And I would always suggest going to quite a well-known supplier like Ocean Safety, who are a well-known supplier of rescue equipment, marine rescue equipment. We use them, the RNLI, and they're not that expensive. and they are really simple and easy to use. Yeah, because you can then get 3 people gripping them, you know, across the top of it through the mesh and just drag them up easy.
Because with a rope it really takes a lot of practice.
It does, yeah, it does take practice, I agree. And particularly if it's a bigger person, it is harder. But if that's all you had to hand, you could use it. But if you have a mesh, and they stack really neatly in a small sort of tube that you can just put onto your A-frame or down one of your tubes on your sponsons. So yeah, certainly a good bit of kit to have, yeah, and useful, very useful.
Thank you.
So there's cox in the boat at the diver. So it's important to emphasise as divers that recording the time of entry into the water.
Time in, time out, yeah. That's one thing I did religiously.
Yeah. So it's emphasised to everybody how important it is to do your dive log sheets on the boat.
100%. And that's me commercially doing it day in, day out. Yeah. I'm going to be brutally honest, because I said I want everyone to be honest with them. I'll be honest with you. I didn't necessarily write it down on a slate, I'll be brutally honest, but I always recorded it. Yeah, my watch, mental note, 12:05. And the one thing I did in my briefing, I give my briefing on the site, and I was religious, saying, right, what's the time, maximum dive time? 40 minutes. And they were there. I said, okay, if you're not up in 50 minutes, I'm on channel 16. And I mean it, yeah? So they knew. So someone gave me a Mickey Mouse time, an hour and a half, I just go, sorry, no, maximum time's an hour, yeah? But yes, you'd ask them, and I always record last diver in, last diver out, yeah? So I knew exactly to the minute when I should be expecting to see divers. So me as a coxswain, then I also know where to start looking as well.
Exactly. So the cox is here, you need to understand what it's like a big climb. It's so important.
Hugely important. It's the number one thing. I don't bother asking about air in, air out, personally speaking, because we all breathe different rates, so it's immaterial to me. And if you've got a 10 litre, 12 litre, twin set, what's your breathing rate? Oh, no. For me, that wasn't important. For me, 100%, divers time in, divers time out, and you stick to it.
And as there's a few coxers here.
Yeah.
As a cox, a few of us cox very regularly in this club. And I can tell you from nothing, one of my bugbears, if you say to a diver 40 minutes, that means not 43, that means 40 minutes. But every time we give, we agree.
So,
to be up.
Part of the reason as well is taking S&B. So I want to know that if you're diving, your maximum time is 40 minutes, yeah? I'll give you a couple of minutes here or there, right, personally. But I want, that's 40 minutes on the surface, by the way. So I know that you'll be diving, let's say a 30 metre wreck, still stuck on my head, 20 minutes, yeah? Bottom time. Okay, you've got a bit of nitrox in there, let's say that's 28 minutes, yeah? You're going to do maybe a 3-minute minimum safety stop, but you've gone over a couple of minutes and you might have a 5-minute deco stop, yeah? 5 minutes and 28 is going to be about what, 33, yeah? 33, 34 minutes. I want to see an S&B on the surface at about that, so I know I might see it earlier, latest after about 33 minutes, but you give me a maximum dive time of 40. So I'm going to worry if I'm not seeing S&B on the surface after 35, yeah? And what I want to see, boat, 12 divers, probably 6 S&Bs, because you've all been good and not separated from one another. I want to see a line in my ideal world of 6 S&Bs all going in the current, going in the same line, yeah, away from the wreck, from my pill boy. That's what I want to see, yeah? And most of the time I get it. And when I don't get it, they get a rocketing, yeah? But it may be, you know, we've had separation, yeah? So, separation, what you taught.
Yeah.
Look for a minute straight up, aren't you? Yeah. Yeah. So what I ideally would like to see is, you've looked for a minute, okay, minute and a half. No, 2 S&Bs come up and surface like this, yeah? I know what's happened then. And it's happened after 15 minutes, so I know I've got 2 S&Bs. I know, really, I probably know, pretty certain that that's 2 divers who've got separated and they're coming up. Happy days, brilliant, done well. Congratulations, then we'll get a clap and a pat. Yeah, that's what I want to see. Not the bozo that was Stan, that was rescued by the boat in the early days of my dive centre, that club, when he decided just to carry on having got separated from his novice diver and just carry on and use his surface mark, use his lift bag as an S&B. Yeah, that's when you get the rescue occurring. So yeah, so S&Bs, stick to your dive times, tell the coxswain what your time in, time out is. Yeah.
So there's a reason for saying the time in. So if you do need to instigate a search, then you can tell the Coast Guard they enter the water at that time, and they can then plot directly.
But as a coxswain, yeah, I know which way the current is going. Yeah. So I know that I know
I
where
want
to
to get these guys
Yeah.
all the stuff.
So I know it's not worth searching here. I know that my current is going that way, so I always instigate not a circular search because that's a waste of time, yeah? But I'll just do an expanding quadrant search, yeah? And I'm looking. And I'm not just looking for SMBs, I'm looking for bubbles as well, yeah? Bubbles are often very hard to spot, but more often than not, I will come across a set of bubbles and I'll be going, you little toe rack. Knowing that the wreck is 20 metres that way, and I'll go, oh, fuck you. I think probably they're too scared to come up, to be honest. So, yeah, bubbles. And some divers think that that's it. Oh, you can follow my bubbles. Bloody hell, can you? Yeah. You can't. Yeah, you're lucky, but I mean, I used to spot them. Great, but I wouldn't spot them all. It's an SM-bloody-B. And not one of those bloody cheap piece of rubbish that you can buy off the internet that's about that wide and about that tall, you know? They're a waste of space. You've got to have Big John. Big John's alright? Okay? With the RNLI, we've always got a couple of freebies around. So there's a box there where I've got nothing too exciting, by the way. There's some key rings, help yourself. They're from an old diving campaign that I had. There's also as well in there is some, these are quite handy, little emergency key rings, call for help, the channel 16 Mayday, and also on there's a bit about how to call for help from a mobile phone. But that might be quite handy to put on the boat, might be handy to put on your handheld VHF, which I'm sure you've got on the boat as well as the Fecher.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe sort of that, because at least then you've got the correct procedures call. So help yourself to a couple of those. And limited edition only, and it's what I've got on the desk here. These were bar mats. So I know you've got bar. So have a few of those if you want. Yeah.
Cool.
Rubber bar mats. Yeah. Put them on your bar if you dare. A little bit about cardiac health. It relates to an old diving campaign I had a few years ago, and I still got them knocking around. I've also got one on my desk, which I use as a mouse mat.
So do I. Exactly that one.
You've had one before, haven't you? The dice show.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So there's some, well, bar mat or mouse mat. What I've got here is what I've got here. So don't all fight at once. Okay? But help yourself to those. And if any of you feel generous enough to contribute, like it sounds like you do anyway, I can't go anywhere without a bucket, yeah? And for those of you who go, I don't carry cash, I get away with it. So no one's got kind of an excuse to escape. But I don't stipulate you have to, but if you want to donate, please do. I'm sure you do anyway. All right? And by the way, any money that does get donated in here is going to go to Selzy Lifeboat, because Selzy are doing a fundraiser at the moment to get a new Bobcat, which is their launch tractor, launches their G-class and flattens the shingle off at Selzy. You'll probably know Selzy.
So what's your recommendation of using Selzy slip? We used to use it for years.
So mine, you saw there, bless, you had the lifeboats on the background of the lifeboat station. You can still use Selzy, no problem. They will welcome you there, as long as please do not dive in the groins where the slipway is. Yeah? There's a big sign there, politely asking you to go on the old one. If you go on the one to the west, of Selzy Lifeboat Slip, you'll be down by the old lifeboat legs. Still a cracking dive, 6 metres, lovely little drift dive when you've got viz. And stick to the slack times. 4 before, 3 after, high water. Right? Best one is the 4, the 3 after.
Is it the ebb tide?
Yeah, ebb tide's the best. Particularly ebb tide needs, you can spend 6 hours down there. Yeah, on a high water spring, you've got all about 20 minutes in sludge. But yeah, you can still dive down there, no problem. And you've got mulberry divers at Selzy that are still there, that will do air fills for you as well.
Oh, they're still there?
Yeah, they're still there. Still there. Not doing
They short Bracklesham slip, aren't they?
Bracklesham, there's nothing there.
Bracklesham.
Nothing there, Bracklesham. Even the council guys are gone now. So there's nothing there at all, and the slip is just full of shingle. It's where Guildford used to go from when we were in Wittering. Green rib. So you can you can't dive there anymore, but you can get down at Selzy with the boat. Down the slipway there. But yeah, the beach dive's still good, but don't dive right in front of the slipway. Otherwise you get Archie the coxswain shouting at you, not politely. Very unpolitely you'll be. Alright? Okay.
Is the petrified forest still there? At crack question was that?
Yeah, what you've been with the fossilised shark's teeth and stuff, yeah?
I can't remember where it was exactly.
No,
but
it's
it
in the
used to
clay,
be
in the
petrified.
clay beds on the Harris Reef. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
still find it still,
Lots
you
of
still get
marks
shark's
on
teeth.
it.
Yeah, you still get shark's teeth, yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to, I think that's a good segue to thank Nick.
Oh, no worries.
for his
I'm
time.
going around for a little
Big John. Big John.
Yeah.
You're going to stick around a little
I'll
bit?
stick
so we
around
can
a
have
bit, yeah, I
chat,
know,
so
no
if
great
people want
rush.
to chat with Nick, and
Yeah.
please make a donation.
There's a,
Thank you very
there's
much.
a number of companies making, but this particular one's a making out one. There's a number of them making. But it's food for thought.
Yeah, no, we get up. It's almost good. It's good.
There are other versions which got little crack bottles on as well. You know, the little miniature crack bottles.
Yeah.
That one has got a little mini crack bottle in as well. That's quite a big one.
Until they start fizzing through the sides of it.